I used to wake up with this knot in my stomach that whispered, "You're defective." It was a quiet, constant hum beneath the surface of everything. My family's favorite hobby was rewriting reality, and they were masters of the craft. They were like architects building a house where all the doors were trick doors, and every hallway led you back to the same room, the one where you were wrong. If you've ever felt both loved and demolished by the very same people, pull up a chair. This isn't a story about a perfect, clean recovery. This is the mess, the milestones, and the map that got me out. My name is Laura, and this is my story. Our house didn't run on love. It ran on a currency of report card applause and tearless silence. Performance was everything. An A- wasn't a success. It was a prelude to a 2-hour lecture on my lazy character and squandered potential. Crying wasn't seen as a release of pain. It was labeled theatrics, a manipulative attempt to hijack the conversation. I once asked for a lock on my bedroom door, and the request was met with accusations of being secretive and ungrateful. Privacy was treated like a crime. By 22, my body was keeping score. I had a stomach ulcer that felt like I'd swallowed hot coals, and a case of the Sunday night panic attacks that started like clockwork around 4 p.m., anticipating the week ahead. My mind was a jukebox with only one song on repeat. A chorus of, "You're a burden. You're too sensitive. What is wrong with you?" I didn't know the term emotional abuse. I just knew I felt hollow, like a beautiful vase with a crack running all the way through it, unable to hold anything. The first crack of light came when I was 24, perched on the edge of a therapist's worn-out couch. I was bracing for the usual, "But they're your parents. They love you." The line everyone uses to staple your wounds shut. Instead, she just listened. And after I finished, she slid the tissue box closer and said, "Nothing you just told me is normal, and none of it is your fault." That one sentence. It was like a wrecking ball to the drywall I'd meticulously built around my own heart. For the first time, a new thought flickered to life. Maybe the problem wasn't me. Maybe it was never about the seed. Maybe it was the soil I'd been planted in. Admitting my family hurt me, and that some of it was on purpose, felt like swallowing gravel. It was a truth so jagged it tore at me on the way down. For months, I ricocheted between white-hot rage and a tidal wave of guilt. I was furious they had manipulated me, that they had twisted my reality until I couldn't trust my own mind. Then, I'd feel deeply ashamed for even thinking such things about my own family. It was like being the sole witness to a crime, but also being the defendant. The game changer was when I stopped trying to make sense of it in my head and started logging the incidents like a neutral reporter. I bought a cheap notebook and wrote it all down. Date, scene, who was there, and direct quotes. No emotional adjectives. No, "maybe I'm oversensitive." No, "he was just stressed." Just the facts. It looked like this. October 12th. Dad called my new apartment a dump in front of my friends. When I said it hurt my feelings, he said, "I'm just being honest. Can't you take a joke?" Seeing years of these moments in stark black and white made the gaslighting fold. It's hard for a ghost to haunt you when you keep turning on all the lights. My memory stopped feeling like a criminal on the stand and started feeling like a reliable witness. I also quit softening my language to keep other people comfortable. Out went, "They're just strict," and in came, "They're emotionally abusive." Out went, "My mom has a temper." In came, "My mom is verbally aggressive." The new words tasted bitter at first, but they formed my first real boundary, the boundary of truth. If you're sugarcoating your past to survive it, try writing down the ugly, unedited version. Ink has a way of refusing to lie. My opening bid at setting a boundary was laughably small. My family's witching hour was after 9 p.m. That was prime time for circular arguments and surprise lectures. So my first boundary was this. I stopped answering their calls after 9 p.m. That was it. One night, the phone rang at 9:32. I stared at it, my heart jackhammering against my ribs. I let it flip to voicemail. A minute later, the message preview popped up. Mom's voice. Selfish as usual. We do everything for you. My whole body screamed at me to call back, to apologize, to smooth it over. But I didn't. The next morning, with trembling hands, I texted. I was winding down for the night. I'm happy to talk today when it works for me. That silence that followed felt like standing on a cliff with no railing. The guilt moved in for 3 solid days. It was a physical presence. I felt nauseous, my hands trembled, and a headache took up residence in my skull, refusing to pay rent. It was like my body was going through withdrawal from the drug of seeking their approval. But on the fourth morning, I slept until my alarm. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic. I woke up understanding. Boundaries aren't punishments you inflict on them. They are oxygen masks for you. They aren't about building a wall to keep them out. They're about building a door you can control. If you're terrified to say no, start absurdly tiny. Mute the family group chat for an hour. Leave the holiday party 10 minutes earlier than you normally would. Don't answer a text immediately. Each micro no is a single rep at the gym. It feels awkward and small at first, but it's building the muscle you'll need for the heavier lifting ahead. Books on the topic helped me feel seen, but therapy was what rewired the faulty circuitry. I did a type of therapy called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It sounds like sci-fi, I know. You follow a light bar with your eyes, or hold buzzers in your hands, while recalling traumatic scenes. It's like being the director of a movie you hate, but this time, you have the power to turn down the volume. It doesn't erase the memories, but it drains the emotional voltage from them. I could picture a specific living room ambush without my heart rate sprinting for the exit. The memory was still there, but it was no longer in charge. At night, I parked a notebook beside my bed. The rule was simple. Before I turned the light off, I had to write down one thing I felt proud of that day. The first entries were almost pathetic. I loaded the dishwasher even though I was dead tired. I paid my credit card bill on time. But over months, the pride list grew. It became, I asked for the raise at work. I hung up when Dad started screaming. I tried a new recipe and it didn't suck. These tiny wins, logged daily, compound like interest in a bank account for your soul. When therapy felt too clinical, I went feral with creativity. I bought a huge canvas and slashed red paint across it until it felt like the visual representation of my anger. I titled the beautiful mess Boundary. I made rage playlists and danced in my living room until I was drenched in sweat. I drove to the beach and sobbed until my sinuses staged a full-scale protest. Emotions are just energy. If you trap them inside your body, they rot. You have to give them a runway. Write, sprint, paint, scream into the ocean. If professional help is out of reach right now, 10 minutes of free writing in a journal still drills an exit route for the pain. Healing isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and choosing to keep moving anyway. My assigned role in the family was the scapegoat. If something went wrong, it was easiest for everyone if it was my fault. This programming ran so deep that for years, every office conflict or friendship disagreement had to be my fault, right? I decided to test that belief like a scientist. For every conflict, I'd take out a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On one side, I'd write, evidence it's my fault. On the other, evidence it's not. 9 times out of 10, the evidence indicting me was flimsy or non-existent. Slowly, painstakingly, my own judgment started feeling trustworthy again. One more trick, and this one is powerful. I wrote a letter to 7-year-old me. I found a picture of her, gap-toothed, skinned knees, and I wrote to her, "You aren't too sensitive. You're observant and empathetic. You are not a burden. You are a kid who deserved unconditional safety and joy." I recorded myself reading the letter as a voice memo, and now I play it on dog walks or on tough days. Hearing my adult voice comfort the kid I was dissolves shame faster than any generic affirmation tape. Try it. Kindness aimed backward has a funny way of seeping into today. I used to think loyalty required a shared DNA. I thought family was something you were stuck with. It turns out real loyalty is much simpler. It just asks one question. Do you show up? I forced myself to join a Tuesday night book club. In the beginning, it was agony. But those strangers asked about my weekend, and then, incredibly, they remembered the answer a week later. Over time, they became my chosen clan. We trade birthday brunches, emergency babysitting, and memes about failed sourdough starters. The first Thanksgiving I skipped with my blood relatives, I went to a potluck with my new friends. I laughed so hard, I spat sparkling cider out my nose, and in that moment, I felt safer and more at home than I ever had at a childhood dining room. If you're feeling isolated, start with low-stakes connection. Join a hiking group, a knitting circle, a subreddit about houseplants, a weekly yoga class. The formula is simple. Consistency plus shared curiosity equals connection. You don't have to trauma dump on day one. You don't have to tell them your life story. Just keep showing up. Rejection from your family of origin does not have to be a life sentence of loneliness. Belonging can be built from scratch, with people who treat you like you actually matter. If any of this is landing with you, if you feel a little less alone in your own mess, hit that subscribe button. I post fresh stories regularly about boundaries, brain rewiring, and what life can look like after toxic family systems. You're not solo on this ride. This is a community of us figuring it out together. In the healing world, forgiveness is peddled like mandatory merchandise at a concert. But I'm not shopping for it yet, and that's okay. Acceptance, for me, has been a much more powerful tool. Acceptance means I finally, deeply, clock that my parents may never change. And because of that, I can quit twisting my life into a pretzel hoping they will. I can drop the rope in the tug-of-war. That mental swap freed up more energy than forgiveness ever promised. Now, Sunday mornings are for farmers market donuts and long walks, not for guilt-laden phone marathons. I book flights without calculating, how many days do I owe them? Acceptance is dropping the fantasy of a better past, and instead, choosing to build a present that feels breathable. Moving forward also means trusting my red flag radar. Because manipulation was my native language for so long, I can now spot subtle disrespect at 50 paces. It's like developing a superpower you never wanted. That passive-aggressive comment, the joke that isn't a joke, the feigned helplessness. I see it all now. And instead of gaslighting myself, I act. An eye roll when I state a boundary? Noted. Distance will be adjusted accordingly. Healing doesn't turn you into a blissed-out, perpetually smiling doormat. It teaches you to trust your gut and then back it up with decisive action. Most mornings, I open my eyes and I wait for the familiar feeling of dread to arrive. But it doesn't show up anymore. The knot in my stomach is gone. My shoulders have quit their permanent staging of an uprising toward my ears. I have solid friendships, work that excites me, and a nervous system that finally knows how to exhale. Anxiety still rings the doorbell sometimes, but it's a visitor, not a resident. It doesn't get to move in. If you're in the thick of it, hear this. Your pain is legitimate. The boundaries you fantasize about setting are not selfish. They are necessary. And the life you crave on the other side is absolutely buildable. Start with one microscopic act of self-respect today. Say no to one small thing. Write one raw, true sentence in a journal. Book the therapy consultation you've been putting off. Take the next tiny step, and then swing back and tell me about it. I'll be in the comments cheering you on. You are not alone in this.